So Biden spoke to a lot of people throughout the day. Okay, you even have superstar K-pop band BTS coming over to the White House. Bringing a lot of crowd over to the White House, talking to Biden, and of course talking about hate crimes within the whole Asian American side of things, and of course with politics and also economy. Biden is also talking with Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen about how inflation is at its all-time high and how are they actually going to be bringing it down. So today, the news will mostly consist of this, and of course with what is happening with Russia, Ukraine, and of course with oil prices. All right, so without further ado, let's cover some news today. So the EU sets harshest Russian sanctions targeting oil and insurance. Crude price trade at their highest level in more than 2 months after EU leaders commit to embargo most Russian oil and ban insuring ships carrying Russian oil. Okay, so this basically means that whoever who uses a Russian oil, you get zero benefits. Okay, so this actually destroy the fact that even if China or India want to resell those unethical oil, that's not going to be really working out very, very well. Which is why oil prices, as of earlier, or as of now, right now, as of recording, it's $116.74 in the WTI index. Okay, showing you that the price for oil right now is still quite high. Of course, it kind of went down below $120. Right now, it's still stabilizing about $116. Okay, so clearly, you can see that the EU, whatever the EU did with the embargo, is definitely affecting oil prices. Okay, but at the same time, this is affecting the Kremlin. This is affecting Russia. This is affecting the entire war. Okay, right now with what EU basically doing, okay, Russia now has to be a lot more cautious with what they're going to be doing next. Later on, after this article, we're going to be talking about Ukraine, which what Zelensky came out to talk about. So stay tuned for that. So anyway, let's go back to this article. The embargo is a high-risk strategy for the EU, forcing the bloc to break its dependency on cheap Russian energy. Like I said before, okay, EU relies on Russian energy quite a bit. Okay, and to basically do this embargo, curbing 90% of their purchase from Russia is going to be a huge price fluctuation happening for the ethical and unethical oil. Okay, it is likely to fuel inflation already running at its highest pace in decade on both sides of the Atlantic. Okay, leaders of EU member states said late Monday they had agreed in principle to ban Russian crude and refined fuels that arrived ships, which account for at least 2/3 of imports from Russia. Fuel imported via pipeline was exempted from the deal to get holdout Hungary to agree. The ban will be phased in over several months. By the end of the year, with Germany and Poland stopping buying oil via pipelines, the embargo will cover 90% of previous Russian oil imports. Okay. So yeah, this is huge. Okay, this is affecting it a lot, and of course, I already have a breakdown video for you guys. If you're interested in it, it's on my channel. I uploaded earlier in the afternoon when I was still in camp. Okay, so if you're interested in that, watch that video. Okay, so next up we got Zelensky. Okay, Ukraine Zelensky rejects trading land for peace with Russia. Okay, so if you remember back earlier, okay, I think about a month ago, okay, Ukraine and Russia was actually at the point of saying that, maybe we can trade the Donbas area and just let Russia call it quits. Okay, I'll give you Donbas, I'll give you Luhansk, I'll give you Severodonetsk, but just get away from Mariupol, get away from Kharkiv, get away from Kiev. Okay, let us be us. You can get rid of the eastern region. We allow you guys to take it back. But clearly Russian didn't want that, which is why they liberated Mariupol and continue to strike attack at Kharkiv area, including Kiev, which is the main capital of Ukraine. Okay, so right now with what the EU is doing, banning oil, while doing an embargo on most of Russian crude up to 90%. Okay, suddenly Ukraine looks a lot better. And of course, we also have an additional news on top of this, which I'll kind of just briefly talk about so that I can actually link it back to it later, which is what Biden wanted to do, which is allowing them to send over some crazy stuff. Okay, Biden will be sending over to Ukraine advanced rocket systems. So that's going to be something that we have to talk about later on as well. Okay, so let's get back to this. Okay, Kiev, Ukraine. Okay, Zelensky said his country won't surrender any territory to Russia in exchange for peace, despite losing terrain and soldier daily to Moscow forces. We're not ready to concede any of our territories because our territories are our territories. Trading land for peace is not something we can agree on. Continue to pay heavy toll defending the country eastern Donbas area. The situation in the east is very difficult. We are losing 60 to 100 soldiers every day and something like 500 wounded in combat. The Severodonetsk, capital of the Luhansk region, along, the fighting remained concentrated around that region, where Russia is focusing its offensive after failing to take cities in the central Ukraine. I think it's just basically Ukraine showing that they're not gonna back down after the fact. Well, I personally feel that they're not gonna back down after the fact that EU did something this wrong. Okay, what EU basically did was to completely bottleneck the revenue coming into Russia, because trading of oil export and import is one of the biggest revenue creator for Russia. And and for EU as a whole, they are actually big clients of those unethical oil per se. Because of that, it kind of makes sense. So right now, of course, clearly the EU are actually causing a lot of damage to Russia, up to $10 billion a year, and of course, that's going to be a huge amount. All right, so next up, we have President Biden. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell met with inflation at its highest in 40 years. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this, okay? All right, the Tuesday meeting highlighted how much the White House is relying on outside forces to help combat the highest inflation in 4 decades. The official earlier had played out inflation worries while promoting the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package in March of 2021. This is what Jerome Powell said. He said that it's going to be transitory and all, in seeking additional spending on healthcare, education, and climate change last year. So, okay, for this part, it was because of the Biden administration. They actually wanted to spend more on healthcare, education, and climate change. But of course, I don't think that's helping as much. You should also include infrastructure into that as well, because of the infrastructure package that actually came in. But that's more than the 1.9. It was actually inclusive. That's actually excluding infrastructure, because infrastructure is even more. Okay, it was the third meeting between the two men. They most recently met last November for the Biden interview that led him to offer a second 4-year term to Mr. Powell. So if you remember, last November we were talking about how Jerome Powell was going up against Lael Brainard, going for the federal chairperson. Okay, and Lael Brainard was a very, very good pick, but a lot of people like Jerome Powell more. And of course, Biden was kind of swayed in between. And it was kind of funny because when Jerome Powell was actually chosen by Biden, okay, suddenly Jerome Powell had a change in tonality. Okay, he changed his tone around a transitory inflation. He started to talk about how inflation is starting to look like it's going to persist, and even more bearish connotation around the things that he actually says. Okay, so a lot of people are saying that, most likely, that's what Biden actually told him. But of course, we do not know. We do not know. Allegedly. Okay, so Biden congratulated Mr. Powell on his recent Senate confirmation and promised to maintain a hands-off approach to the Fed. I'm not going to interfere with their critically important work. They have a laser focus on addressing inflation just like I am. Okay, a very constructive meeting focused on the outlook for the US and the global economy, but declined to provide details on the private meeting beyond noting Mr. Biden's respect for the Fed's independence. Okay, so yeah, apparently it was all a nothing sauce. We were expecting a lot out of this meeting, but clearly from our side, we didn't really get anything that we really wanted. So, oh well. Okay, next up we got Bloomberg. Biden says U.S. will provide Ukraine advanced rocket system. This is what I wanted to talk about earlier, okay? The weapon package includes an MLRS system with limits on its use. U.S. said Ukraine agreed not to use the weapon to hit inside of Russia. Okay, so the advanced rocket system is basically considered close to a nuclear weapon already, actually. So over here, I've decided we will provide the Ukrainian with more advanced rocket system and munitions that will enable them to more precisely strike key targets on the battlefield in Ukraine. The packaged weapon includes missiles that will allow Ukraine to strike a location as far as 80 kilometers away. U.S. told a senior U.S. official told reporters on the condition of anonymity. World leaders, including British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, have publicly called for such a move in recent weeks. The decision comes more than 3 weeks after Putin force invaded Ukraine, with the conflict now shifting to a brutal town-by-town grind as Russia tries to consolidate territory in the east rather than seize control of the entire country. Okay. One concern in Washington and some European capitals about supplying longer-range weaponry and munition was whether Ukraine would use them to strike target inside of Russia. That would risk expanding the war and pulling a NATO nation that have sought to draw a line between delivering defense aid and engaging more aggressively in the conflict. Okay, so this is going to be a huge one. Okay, so what this actually says is that because if Ukraine decides to actually use the weapon to strike inside of Russia, not just defend themselves on the Ukraine battlefield, what actually happens is that Ukraine is going to be fully fighting back into Russia. And this will turn out into an all-out war. Okay, right now we are more towards an invasion, not exactly a war. Okay, Russia is just trying to shoot in. They're trying to bring in their soldier. They're trying to, rain down the guns on Ukraine, trying to get as many regions as they can. Of course, clearly that's not working out for Russia. Okay, but what Ukraine will now be able to do with the longer range weaponry and ammunition that is being given by all the other supporting NATO allies, okay, especially with this new advanced rocket system, being able to shoot up to 80 kilometers, okay, and if the Ukrainians, okay, the soldiers on the battlefield actually use it against Russia, this would actually incite a huge war, an all-out war between Ukraine and Russia. And this will actually mix it into a NATO versus a Russian, aka NATO versus Soviet Union and their allies. Okay, so this is going to be going up to be a complete all-out war. And of course, with the European capitals, which are mostly the NATO allies, are actually very, very worried because they are actually calling this out to just be defending Ukraine and helping Ukraine defend themselves more, not for them to actually engage into a more aggressive conflict into this entire thing to create an all-out war. So this is very, very important. Of course, the US have been very, very hesitant to be sending out all these decisive weapons over to Ukraine in hopes that everything can end before these weapons actually land in Ukraine. But evidently, it actually comes down to it. So, we have to actually send over such advanced rocket systems over to Ukraine in order for them to actually, wane off the Russian forces that's coming into Ukraine. All right, so the U.S. official said Ukraine government offered assurance that they won't use the new missile system to target Russian territory in its latest tranche. The U.S. stopped short of agreeing to send the longest range ammunition while highlighting previous shipment of other advanced systems, including howitzer and anti-tank weapons. The new announced the new $700 million security assistance package on Wednesday. Since the war began, the U.S. has supplied more than $4.5 billion in military aid. The officials have vowed to weaken Russia so that it can again attack a neighbor, imposing a slew of sanctions on Moscow and bolstering Ukraine's military with billions of dollars in arms. But the goal of evicting Russian forces from Ukraine seems more distant, even after Zelensky's military force Moscow to scale back its early ambitions to capture Kiev and quickly replace the government. If Russia does not pay a heavy price for its action, it will send a message to other would-be aggressors that they can too seize a territory and subjugate other countries by the road. So I do think that what Biden is actually saying here was actually meant for China, especially with the whole Taiwan situation that Biden kind of misspoke about. But yeah, and after that, he kind of just ended it with, it could mark the end of the rule-based international order and open the doors to aggression elsewhere with catastrophic consequences the world over. So yeah, pretty scary. Looking at how just sending advanced rocket system, you can actually have all these so-called additional effects coming in as well. So, of course, things that we have to really take note of. All right, next up, we got Shanghai. Shanghai reopens with parties, firework after 2 months of lockdown. The city's 15th infection marks the lowest since March 2. Most of Shanghai's residents released from home isolation. Okay, but the thing is that I'm happy for Shanghai because they are reopening after 2 months of a lockdown. It's quite scary to think that 15 infections cause a lockdown. So, whatever the case may be, right now it still doesn't change the perspective for China, because China is still going after their no COVID policy. And until China is able to just let go of the no COVID policy, nothing's really going to change. So that's going to be the concern that we actually have. Okay, so over here you can see in the article, China's financial capital reported its fewest COVID-19 cases in 3 months as a resident celebrated an end to mandatory home isolation for most of the city, while some companies continued factory restriction out of caution. So of course, they are mostly talking about Tesla and all the other countries. And even for Tesla, okay, Elon Musk came out with an ultimatum. Okay, he sent out an email to all the workers in Tesla saying that you have to work minimally a 40-hour week. Otherwise, get the hell out of my company. And, because he's basically saying that if the factory workers are working so hard, those Tesla executive needs to work from the office, okay, not work from home. You want it 40 hours in the office at the very least. And of course, for people who are unable to do so due to special conditions, they can just get it up over to Elon Musk and ask for a direct approval. That was the email that actually came out that I actually read in a group of Tesla fanatics. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, Shanghai saw 15 new infection on Tuesday, the lowest caseload since March 2nd, and a dramatic drop from the peak of more than 27,000 a day in April. While most of the city's 25 million residents were released from one of the world's most restrictive pandemic lockdowns of 2 months, about 10% still aren't allowed to move about the city. Okay, so Tesla and Volkswagen will keep workers at their Shanghai plants isolated in special bubbles until the end of next week to ensure stability of output. People familiar with the plans told Bloomberg News. Mazda expect ripple effects causing halts and delay across select manufacturing facilities worldwide in parts because of the lockdown. Japanese automaker Toyota Motor said it will monitor the situation for now, as will Suzuki Motor. Sony Group partially restarted its Shanghai plant that will make television and video cameras in early May and aims to return to full operation over the next several months, according to the spokeswoman. Okay, so yeah, basically, they're saying that Shanghai is slowly going to open up. So I do think that we are starting to see a little bit of some reopening place for China. Okay, if you actually look at Xpeng, if you look at Pinduoduo, if you look at Alibaba, if you look at any of the Chinese company right now, you will see that they're starting to go slightly up a bit. But of course, you also have to take into consideration that they had a rate cut, okay, because China is effectively in recession. It means that they have already found a bottom, okay, which is why you can see a lot of the companies that is in China starting to come back a little bit. They're starting to recover back a little bit again. And that's why I'm going to be spending possibly the whole of I think about like 5 hours later on to properly go through all the Chinese companies to actually find a fair value. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to be making a video for that, but maybe that might be a video for Saturday. I'll see how it actually goes. But yeah, I'm very, very excited for it because if we can actually find good fair value for the Chinese companies, maybe it's a good time for us to actually get back into the Chinese market again. So yeah, all right. And for the last news, we have BTS meeting Joe Biden to discuss stamping out hate crime. Okay, honestly speaking, I added this in because I'm a big fan of BTS, and I have been for like 7 years. So I just wanted to add this in. I thought that it was crazy to see BTS actually coming out. They've already done so much. They have done Billboard, they have done Grammy. I'm happy that they are coming out to the White House talking about stamping out hate crime, especially with what COVID actually brought to the United States. Okay, I'm not there, but I've heard so many different stories about racism because people generally just like to associate COVID with China and China with Asia, and basically just hating on all of us because they just think that COVID is caused by Asians in general, and that's where Asian hate actually went crazy. But yeah, I'm very, very happy to see that BTS is in the front facing doing all this. So yeah, great stuff. Anyway, that's all I have for today's news. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.